Hey guys, welcome to the Unit 7 Quadratics speed round. So, pretty much what I'm going to do is go through as much as I can about quadratics as quickly as possible so that we can kind of get some people back on board. One thing I want to say before I start putting this down is this is going to be a overview. It's not going to be the original lesson. If you want the full original lesson, you need to go back and watch that lesson video. But this is just an overview of everything we've learned so far about quadratics. And this is mainly for people who've been paying attention and doing their assignment, and they just need a refresher, okay? So it's kind of like a quadratics crash course. That's what we'll call it. So first thing I'm going to do is take a piece of notebook paper, so make sure you have one, and fold it in half so that I just line up nicely. So now you have a crease down the middle of your page, and we're going to use that. On one half, we are going to write vertex form. And on the other half, we are going to write standard form. Okay. And there will be a third section down below, but for right now, what I need you to do is find yourself a piece of notebook paper and go ahead and write vertex form and standard form on there for me. All right, now on the left side under vertex form, I want you to go ahead and write f of x equals 2, parentheses x minus 3, parentheses squared, minus 7. And on standard form, I want you to go ahead and write f of x equals x squared minus 10x plus 24. So first thing I'm going to do is say that the difference between these two is that this one is already multiplied out. Standard form does not have any parentheses or anything in it. Vertex form does. The reason why vertex form has those parentheses is because that is your vertex. So your vertex from vertex form shouldn't require much work. That's what the form is for. That's why it's called vertex form. So the vertex is going to be this number, but whenever you take a number out of parentheses, you always have to make it the opposite. And then comma this number. But that number gets to stay the same. So it's just really these two numbers, but the first one that comes out of the parentheses has to change signs. In general, whenever we take things out of parentheses to solve for them like this, we end up having to switch the signs. All right, next up with vertex form, you need to be able to find the y-intercept. So this one's a little bit different than you might be thinking. It is not -7. That rule only works over here. And if you don't even know what rule I'm talking about, that's okay. Just hang on tight until we get to this problem. What you're going to do is plug in 0 for x. What that means is I'm going to rewrite the equation, but instead of x, I'm going to put in 0. So it's basically just this, but you replaced x with 0. And then type this into a calculator or do it in your head. I'm going to do it in my head just because I want to try it. 0 minus 3 is -3. -3 squared is 9. So I basically have 2 times 9 minus 7. Well, 2 times 9 is 18, and 18 minus 7 is 11. So my y-intercept is 11. Now, I'm not going to actually graph this right now, but I am going to say that if you wanted to graph this, you would graph this point, which would be right 3, down 7. This is your x, this is your y. Then you would put a point on the y-axis at 11, and I'm going to put a little hint that you reflect the y-intercept. Okay, so wherever this is, you would flip it across the middle of the graph, which is this point right here. Okay, but that makes a lot more sense once you actually see the graph. So that is vertex form. Do me a favor and throw yourself like a box or something around this so that you know that is your vertex form stuff. Like that. That is like topic 1. Topic 2 is standard form. This is where you need to do the negative b over 2a. So for your vertex, you have to use negative b over 2a. Negative b means you do the opposite of the number in the middle. So negative 10 is going to turn into positive 10. And a is 1 in front. So 2 times 1 is 2. And 10 divided by 2 is 5. So your vertex starts with 5. Then what you have to do to find the last number is you have to plug in 5 for x. So I'm rewriting the equation, but I'm changing x to 5 in parentheses. The parentheses are a pretty important part, especially if you're typing it in your calculator. And that answer is what finishes off the vertex. Let's see, this is going to be 25 minus 50 plus 24. 25 minus 50 is negative 25, plus 24 is negative 1. And that is your vertex. The y-intercept is the easiest part of standard form because if you do the same thing here and you plug in 0 for x, this is going to be 0, this is going to be 0. So I'm still going to say that you're still plugging in 0 for x, but that means that these two go away and all you have left is 24. So your y-intercept of this one is 24. Okay? Those are the two most important parts. You might want to circle your vertex right here. The formula, negative b over 2a, and the y-intercept. So that you can easily see those. Over here, you might want to circle this and this. Now let's talk about zeros. That's the very last part. So for zeros, there's actually two types. So what we're going to do is write zeros right across the middle line. And then we're going to draw a line down the middle. So this should be like on the crease of your paper that we made, like this. Over here, I want you to write 2 terms equals solve normally. And over here, I want you to write 3 terms equals factor. So here's an example of 2 terms. F of x equals negative 3x squared plus 48. And on the right side, f of x equals x squared minus 8x minus 20. Okay, so here's what I mean by solve normally. This side should just be 0 now. That's what it means when we're finding the zeros, is f of x is 0, or y is 0. Then you want to get x by itself, so subtract your 48 to the other side. Zero minus 48 is negative 48. We keep the negative 3x squared, but this positive and negative 48 cancel. Then divide by negative 3. There's no plus or minus sign in between the 3 and the x, so that's why we are dividing. Negative 48 divided by negative 3 is 16. And now I just need to know what number squared equals 16. There's two answers. One of them is 4, and the other one is negative 4. Just like that. And then make sure that this line goes all the way down. Over here, when we are factoring, this side still becomes 0 the same way it did before. But we can't solve this one like we did this one because there's an x here and an x here. So what we do is factor, where we make the right side into two parentheses with an x in them. And these two numbers that we put here and here need to multiply to negative 20 and add to negative 8. So negative 20 could be negative 4 and 5, 2 and 10, or 1 and 20. Those are the only things that go into 20. And I want to pick this one because they add to 8, but since I want it to actually be negative 8, the 2 should be the positive and the 10 should be the negative. And then your answers are, what number plus 2 will give you 0? So you're almost solving it like this. That would be negative 2. And then you're solving it like this. X minus 10 equals 0. We would add this 10 to the other side, so then it would be positive 10. And that's it, folks.